Hello, Joe here from Infiniti of Tacoma. I have something special for you today. This beautiful 2005 Porsche 911 S Convertible, 6-speed manual transmission, clean Carfax, 2 previous owners. One of my favorite cars. I love cars. I've been in the car business since the mid-90s, and the Porsche 911 is kind of like my unicorn. It's one of the vehicles I've always dreamed of owning. One of these days, hopefully I'll have one. Unfortunately, if things were a little bit better aligned, I would definitely be really aggressively thinking about buying this one. But I have 4 cars, 2 little kids, and I don't have enough space to buy a vehicle like this. But maybe sometime in the future that will happen for me. But maybe you've dreamed of owning a 911. Well, this one might be the perfect one for you. We had this inspected at Porsche. We did a buyer's inspection. We paid $400. Usually we don't do that, but with Porsche buyers, especially older vehicle like this, a lot of times we sell vehicles like this out of state. People are a lot more comfortable getting that buyer's inspection, and it sometimes can be a roadblock to a sale because people won't buy the vehicle until it gets inspected. Well, guess what? We've already done that for you, and we can give you a copy of that. Didn't need too much. There's a few things. We replaced it. I have to check up. We replaced a module. The airbag light and the roll bar light was on. That was connected to a module. We spent about $800 replacing that. We had Porsche do that. Then in the buyer's inspection, a few things came up. A few things we're not going to fix. You know, it's a little bit older car with 91,000 miles. We're not going to make it brand new, but we addressed a lot of the major things. Obviously, the airbag light. We also did brand new front and rear brakes, pads, rotors, new brake sensors. So, you know, that was a little over $2,000 to do that. We spent $800 to fix the module, $400 for the buyer's inspection. There's a few small things like the ignition switch is a little bit loose. Sometimes it might pop inside there. We put it back. I've driven this a few times. It hasn't popped back in for me. That's the thing that you can fix. And, you know, part of the fun of having a little older car like this is tinkering with the things. So, you know, we're making sure that the big things are addressed, and you might have to tinker with a few things. Like, for instance, this is loose. It still works, but, you know, again, you know, we're not gonna replace this or, you know, go into too much diag time to fix something like that. But the car runs and drives beautiful. We've inspected it. We've had Porsche inspect it. We have the original build sheet on it. Originally the MSRP was $103,360, but if you adjust for inflation back in 05, that's probably maybe like $130,000, $140,000 in today's money. Pretty fuel efficient too, 18 city, 26 highway. So some of the packages, it has the headrests embossed and with the Porsche insignia, excuse me, $220. Porsche, they're pretty much a la carte as far as options go. So, you know, every 911 is almost a little bit different as far as features go. Wheel caps with colored Porsche crest, $185. Bose high-end sound package, wow, 13 speakers, 325 watt amplifier, that was $1,390. Self-dimming mirrors, $385. Parking assist system, $530. Sport chrono package, $920. The DVD based navigation system, $2,000. Unfortunately, the 05 navigation is not going to be that great. I mean, it might be functional to a degree, but your phone's probably going to do it way better. But it still works. And, you know, remote 6-disc CD changer, $650. Some people still have CDs, but again, you know, it's something that probably not too many people are going to utilize these days. And then it's got the stone gray full leather, midnight blue metallic exterior paint. It has the Adaptive Sport STS leather interior. Yeah, $103,360 original MSRP. And of course, you can print out a copy, or you know, we can email you one if you want to peruse it yourself. 6-speed manual transmission. I think that's the only way to own a vehicle like this, and I've had a chance to drive this a little bit, and it's a beautiful driving vehicle. It's tight as a drum, and these have proven to be very reliable. There's older 911s with 200, 300,000 miles on them. You know, these aren't built cheap, so, you know, they're designed to, I think these are probably some of the best built, you know, products that Porsche makes. And if you look at JD Power's quality reports, the 911 has very high scores. And obviously it's not going to be as simple or to fix or reliable as like a Toyota Camry, but as far as exotic sports cars go, I think the 911 is probably the more practical you know, vehicle as an everyday driver and reliability versus like having like a exotic Italian sports car like a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, even though that might not have the same curb appeal. But that's the thing I love about the Porsche. It is a supercar in, you know, a certain way, but it doesn't, you know, it's not as you know, dramatic looking as like a Lamborghini or Ferrari, and it's just a little bit better everyday driver. It's a little bit more practical and comfortable to drive. That's what's great about it. And 2005 is a great year for the 911. I'm sorry, yeah, 2005 is a great year for the 911 because this is the first year of the 997 generation. And as far as collectability goes, I think this probably has a lot more potential for being a desirable classic in the future versus the 996. Obviously, if you're pretty well versed in 911s, it's pretty elementary what I'm talking about, but I'll kind of, you know, kind of give a quick synopsis of the 996 versus the 997 for some other people maybe watching this video, just to research 911s, getting some information, or maybe you're new to 911 and you're thinking about buying this one. So the 996 was the first liquid-cooled version of the 911. I think it first came out in 97, 98, right around that time. And it was not very well received. A lot of Porsche purists didn't like it, for one, because it had liquid cooling, but I think liquid cooling just had to happen. You know, Porsche had air-cooled engines for, you know, 30 plus years since the 1960s, but as far as, you know, horsepower and performance, they were pretty much kind of reaching a ceiling as far as what you could do with a air-cooled engine, and they needed to go to liquid cooling just to keep on stepping up and increasing performance to stay in step with the competition. So it got the liquid-cooled engine, and they had issues with that engine. They have what they call an IMS bearing. This has an IMS bearing, but the 996 were notorious for having the IMS bearings basically disintegrate, and it would destroy the whole engine. It is fixable. You can replace the IMS bearings and make the engine a lot more reliable, but it's like $3,000 to do that. The 997, this generation of the 911, also has an IMS bearing, but it does not have the same issues. And then going towards the styling, the 996 was very conservative as far as the styling goes. It didn't have like the curvaceous body and the dramatic headlights that we've known from the, you know, previous generations of 911s that they saw for the, you know, past 30 years. The front of the 996 911 actually looked almost identical to the Porsche Boxster, and that's kind of annoying. It's like, okay, I'm going to buy a $50,000 Boxster, or, you know, I'm going to buy a $100,000 911, and then the front end's going to look exactly like the $50,000 cheaper Boxster. So with the 997, they restyled the whole vehicle. The interior is a lot nicer looking than the 996, and then the exterior styling is definitely a lot more in the true theme of the 911. And I think they righted a lot of wrongs with the 996. Don't get me wrong, the 996 are great cars, but visually, the performance-wise, the 997 is just so much superior in all those ways. And you got a good amount of horsepower. If you want more information, I actually just read a great archived review from Car and Driver on a road test of an 05 911S. It was a hardtop, but, you know, performance-wise, it's going to be pretty similar to the convertible. You get 350 horsepower, which is a lot of horsepower from a naturally aspirated 6-cylinder engine. So this thing, 0 to 60, a little over 4 seconds, can do the quarter miles in the 12s, and I think the top speed's like 160 or so miles per hour. So even this is an 05 car, even though it's older, it still has lots of performance, lots of fun. It is quite an experience driving this vehicle. So let's start looking around the vehicle. We also had the leather interior reconditioned, so it's looking a lot better. So 2 previous owners, as I mentioned before. It spent most of its life in Arizona, and then it came to Washington. We purchased this vehicle from a wholesale seller. We buy a good amount of premium vehicles from. Recently I bought a Porsche Panamera Executive from him. And usually, you know, buying cars like this, he bought this vehicle at the auction. A lot of vehicles sell at the auctions, but for me, I wouldn't want to buy a vehicle like this at the auction because it's as is, it's not guaranteed. If something's majorly wrong with it, you're stuck with it and you have to fix it. But me purchasing it from the wholesale seller, I have a relationship, I have some recourse. He allowed me to get a Porsche buyer's inspection, and if it had major issues, I had the ability to unwind the deal. And that's the only way I would, purchase a vehicle like this. Some car dealerships and wholesalers are willing to take more of a risk in a vehicle like this. We're kind of a smaller operation. We can't afford to take a risk. So that's the only way I was able to buy a vehicle like this, having that ability to unwind the wholesale transaction if it didn't need too much work in the shop, which it didn't. We actually did find the repair to be a little bit more costly than we expected as far as fixing that module to address the airbag light and the roll bars, and he split the cost with us, so that definitely made it even better for us and for you, still able to fix this vehicle up and sell it at a reasonable price. Here's the floor mats, and then we have the wind blocker. This really does a great job for top-down highway cruising. It really reduces wind noise, so if you can have a nice conversation with the passenger. Some other things we did, the bumper had a scuff on it, and it had a little bit of road rash on it, so rather just repairing that one thing, I had the whole bumper resprayed. It did a good job. It matches the body very well. Definitely looking better. Likewise, we had a scuff on the rear bumper as well, and I had the rear bumper refinished. And I can tell you, painting plastic bumpers is a lot simpler than repainting metal panels. When you start repainting metal panels, that's a little bit more serious thing, but repainting plastic bumpers is very, very minor paint work. We also put new pads and rotors and brake sensors, as I mentioned before. So this is one beautiful summer sports car, beautiful handling vehicle. Look at the beautiful lines of this. Definitely a lot more curvaceous and looking like a traditional 911 than the previous 996 generations. I'll put a photo comparison up so you can look at them both. And one unique thing about the Porsche 911, it's the only vehicle that you can buy, aside from a bus, with the engine mounted behind the rear axle. Pretty much like 60% of the vehicle's weight is behind the rear axle. This car has some booty to it for sure, but with all that weight over the rear tires, as far as driving the corners, this thing is planted, and you can definitely tell the rear tires are a lot wider than the front tires, but this thing just sticks to the road. Where my G35 sport sedan is front engine, the tail can get a little bit wiggly in performance driving, but when you're cornering this thing, the rear end just feels planted. And Porsche has been evolving and improving the 911 for 30 plus years, and they've definitely got it down to a science, making this a great performing vehicle with the engine mounted behind the rear wheels. And that's unique to Porsche. The feel and sound of the flat six, it's all very unique to the experience of owning and driving the 911. Now, that being said, let's take it for a quick spin. It's always a treat when you're behind the wheel of a Porsche 911. And even though this is a little bit of an older one, it's still a wonderful, beautifully driving car. The 6-speed gearbox is an absolute work of art. Pleasure to drive. And very tight car still, even it's an older car, 2005, it's 2021 now, but it still feels great, handles great, doesn't feel loose. And Porsche 911s have a great reputation for build quality and longevity. There's lots of stories of older 911s with 200, 300,000 miles on them. Obviously they're a little bit more complex than a regular Toyota Camry or Corolla, but if you stay up on the maintenance, make sure you take care of it, replace things that are broken, it can be a great car that will last a very long time. And this one definitely has the potential to be a future classic. As I discussed, the 997 I think is going to be a little bit more desirable than the 996 series it replaced. It just, aesthetics of it looks better, has more of the curvy sexy lines from the older 911s, and also you don't have that IMS bearing issue like you do on the 996. That flat 6 is just a wonderful sounding engine. Plenty of power. This pumps out about 350 horsepower, enough for 0 to 60 a little over 4 seconds, quarter mile in the 12s, and I think the top speed's like 160, 170. Obviously today's newer 911s are a lot faster, but still by today's standards compared to a lot of other performance cars, this still is very quick, and definitely has enough speed, enough performance to give you plenty of driving enjoyment. You can only go so fast on public roads anyways. Oh, looks like we're getting a little rain here, unfortunately. Can't get too crazy, but I don't get too crazy anyways on public roads, so. So the great thing about the 911 is that you have a lot of grip on the rear tires because you have 60% of the vehicle's weight over the rear wheels. So where a lot of like front drive, well not front drive, front engine, rear wheel drive performance cars, like I have a G35 6-speed sedan, it's got 300 horsepower rear wheel drive. It gets really loose, you know, when I'm going through corners and getting on the throttle, you can feel the rear end getting squiggly, but it's a lot different with a Porsche. With all that weight on the rear tires, the rear feels very planted in the corners. Really, it's not, definitely if you're not used to driving 911s, you have to get used to its uniqueness, but it's definitely very confident, inspiring. You have an excellent stability control system, so if you get a little bit too stupid, you start going around a corner too fast, it's going to activate that stability control system. And just remember, it can't always overcome the laws of physics. If you do things that are too stupid, you can still drive off the road. Very comfortable interior. I'm 6'2". I fit very comfortably in here. Plenty of headroom, shoulder room. I don't know about the back seats. I don't know if anyone can really use the back seats. I think maybe it's something to make the insurance companies happy, saying that it's got a 4-seater instead of a 2-seater, but they do serve as a good partial shelf to put your luggage back there. And the nice thing too about the 911 is it has lots of practical everyday comfort, where I consider the 911s closer to like exotic cars, maybe not quite as expensive as Lamborghinis and Ferraris, but definitely more exotic than like a Mustang or something like that. But the great thing about the Porsche is it offers, you know, exotic looks, exotic car type performance, but it's also a very practical everyday vehicle. And the styling also is a little bit more understated. It's not as flashy as some other cars. It's a little bit more reserved as far as the styling goes, and that's always kind of been the way Porsche rolls. Their philosophy is form follows function. You know, they design a vehicle to perform the best as it can. They design it to be as aerodynamic as possible, and then, you know, how the car looks, that's just kind of a result of you know, the engineering behind it. Versus some car companies, they start off, okay, we want this beautiful car to look like this, and then we're just going to make, you know, the aerodynamics and everything else work around that styling theme of the car. Well, that ends our drive. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed the video, please like it. If you want to find out some more incoming vehicles, I try to get the vehicles as posted as possible. Subscribe to our channel. You can find it on YouTube. Channel name's Infiniti of Tacoma 1, or if you just search for Infiniti of Tacoma, we'll pop right up. Again, thanks for watching, and hope to see you soon.